Will there ever be an 11th team on the Formula One grid ever again? Andretti Motorsport is certainly trying their damnedest to make this a reality, but in the meantime, video games are here to let us all live the fantasy of having and managing our own custom teams, and having 22 drivers lining up for each race start. Launching on the 23rd of July, F1 Manager 24 will bring a new creator team option to the career mode, letting you found a brand new team to join the grid, set their liveries, team suit colours, and create a new logo using some pretty solid and comprehensive layering tools. Alongside that, there's also a background and origin for your team to choose from, giving various scenarios that dictate some of the initial financing and the story that you're telling. You could rock up to the grid as an immediate contender for a championship, or lean on an established motorsport pedigree, similar to the Andretti story, or just start as a complete newcomer to motorsports. Compared to just hopping into one of the real-world teams, you've got a few more things to look after as you go through each season, namely sponsors. As you'd expect, these give you a healthy injection of funding, with more on the table if you can hit your goals and targets. And so picking your sponsor is pretty much key to deciding how much cash you're going to have, how far you're going to push yourself and challenge yourself through each season. Of course, this is built into a game that is already going to be rather familiar, and a lot of the UI and the general interface will feel practically indistinguishable to those who played the first two games. As with so many sports game series, there is an evolutionary approach to F1 Manager 24. However, Frontier has made some clear changes to improve and clarify the experience, which is always important for a game that is going to be very stat and menu heavy. The financial screens now have this kind of pie chart to better show the incomings and outgoings of your money, and the R&D screens that show your various car attributes and how they relate to other teams now better point you towards the upgrades in the areas that you could work on to improve your performance. There's also another factor for you to manage, which is the mentality system, and this shows how each driver and team member is really doing, what they think about you, and their general happiness. Are there some changes that you can make to improve their mood and get the best out of them through a race and a season? Well, if you can, then that's the mark of a great manager, and you'll have to make these kinds of decisions to cater to your talent if you want to retain the brightest stars in your team. At the same time, you need to look to the stars of the future, and the new affiliates system lets you sign young F2 and F3 drivers to your team while still letting them carry on in the lower categories. Through this, you can overlook their training and development, guiding their path up to the top tier, hopefully at your team. When you get to the racing itself, this again is sticking to the tried and true from the previous games, but there's now also mechanical failures that can throw spanners in the works for you, or any of the AI controlled cars as well. As someone who lived through the tyre puncture pandemic of Codemasters F1 2010, I can absolutely tell you that randomised damage is very difficult to accept when actually driving the virtual car. But it makes more sense if it's tied in with car wear, damage and more, and as a way of really deepening the recreation of reality. So yes, in F1 Manager 24 there is a random element, but it is tied to something that you can see and prepare for. We were put into a particularly extreme example scenario to demonstrate this, with both Max Verstappen and Sergio Perez coming into the Australian Grand Prix with a lot of heavy wear on their cars. The likelihood of engine, ERS and gearbox failures was through the roof here, with the lifespan percentage all the way down in the teens or the low 20s.
Your battery's drained.
And so management was going to be the order of the day, simply to try and make it to the end of the race. Through the race, both cars saw the ERS die, initially with reduced output and eventually with a total system failure, dramatically reducing the amount of power that they could deploy. One of the pair then had engine failure, further reducing power, and with Perez already out of the points, I figured it best to just retire his car. Of course, Max being Max and the RB20 being the RB20, he was pretty much slicing through the field, even while I was telling him to seek clean air and not stress the ERS deployment in battle. It still wasn't quite enough for him to get up onto the podium, but it honestly wasn't far off. Some of this is work in progress, and there is still room for improvement between now and launch this summer, or into future games. dealing with mechanical failures is a neat idea. I also hope that Frontier is able to improve certain elements of dealing with this damage. Some issues won't be critical and can solve themselves in time, but even if it's not in time for this year's game, it would be great to see some more engaging way to have the crisis managed within your team, telling your engineers to work on a solution, or switching an engine mode and engage mitigations. I look forward to seeing how this pans out in the full game, but I also feel like there's probably plenty more that Frontier can explore as we head into future years and games as well. And that's really the key for this series. F1 Manager is steadily growing into the role of capturing all of the ins and outs of the motorsport soap opera that is Formula 1. Okay, it probably won't ever capture all of the drama and the snippy infighting that goes on, and that's before Netflix comes along to cook up its own narratives. But F1 Manager 24 is bringing a good set of new features, much requested changes, and general improvements to the table. That's all that we've got for our preview of F1 Manager 24. The game is out on the 23rd of July across PlayStation, Xbox and PC, and obviously we'll be returning to the game to review it at that time. Before you go, please make sure to do the usual YouTube things, like, subscribe, click bell icons, you know the drill by now, and hopefully that will mean that we see you again soon. Goodbye!
Your house on the DRS. Okay, recharge on.